Lapeef, let's talk.
Domestic discipline, in a nutshell, is me and Courtney are married, and Courtney and I are vibing, but Courtney knows that she can get on one sometimes, and we sit down and say, when you get on one, and after we go through the process, and I use the safe word, banana split, and you still stay on one after I say banana split. You heard me say banana split. I acknowledge you heard me say banana split, and you stay on one. Well, then it's time for the domestic discipline. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Lay across the knee and on the ass. It's actual spanking. I am not kidding.
Hey guys, and welcome to Little Black Book 91. We are here talking about Kevin Samuels once again. Listen, I was gonna leave him alone. That he came up with some madness from Looney Tunes. So he decides to talk about domestic discipline. So I decided, yes, let's review this, but I didn't want to do it alone. So I did it with a good friend and someone who also is an intellect, very deep, but also very creative as well. You should follow him on Instagram and TikTok. He's amazing at what he does. He's an artist, you know what I'm saying? Not only with the pen, but with the words too. So we'll have individual in a second. I want to let you guys know, if you're new to this channel, like it, share, subscribe, click on that bell button for notification of the uploads. For those of you who are returnees, you already know what it is. You got the minerals. Listen, stay hydrated because the streets out there, they are hot, hot, hot. All right. Individual, join me, sir. How you doing, sir?
I have no complaints. God is good, man. God is good. I'm working just like you. I'm gonna be at your level one day, but you know.
Now, you're already on my level, guys. Listen, if you follow him on Instagram, you'll see that he's already on my level. In fact, he's beyond it. You understand? He's beyond it. Don't worry about me. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with myself. So I showed you this clip the other day. We'll probably watch a little bit more in a second or two. But what was your first thoughts to this discussion that you saw?
If you ask me, he's not moving like an alpha male. He's not moving like someone who's actually dominant. Because with someone who's actually dominant, you're going to be able to perceive what kind of person you're dealing with, right?
Okay.
So you know when somebody comes to work with you in any type of capacity, whether or not they're going to be agreeable or not, right? So then if you have someone, or if you're engaging actively with somebody who you know can act up verbally, or they know how to push your buttons or in any type of way, you know not to engage with those type of people, because one, that's a waste of your time and energy, and you know what can happen if things escalate. So you'd rather not be the one to allow things to get to a certain point, because you know what you are capable of, right? And if you are a person who is of integrity and who treats other people with respect, you're not going to allow any type of disrespect. So it would never get to the point of somebody talking to you any type of way, because they know what you're capable of. They know what you're capable of as well. So when it comes to those types of relationships, it's like, why are you even letting it get to that point? They should know who you are enough so that they respect you, and there's a mutual respect there. Why are you dealing with somebody who's clearly going to disrespect you? Apparently, it's going to get to a certain point where you want to be in a place of control enough so that you can inflict some sort of damage on someone else. It's essentially trying to put someone under you, and it's not even quite necessary, because you would have to see what type of person they are. If you saw what type of person they are and you allowed it to get to a certain point, you want them to submit to you. You want them to be under you as if they're your child, or if they are an object, which is exactly what his mindset is like. So it's just a grab for power. It's just something you feel like you're not in control, and you have to show that you are. Real alphas don't move like that. Real people who are dominant don't need to move like that, because they already surveyed the area. You have to do that. If you're already familiar with this, and you know what you can do, you're not going to let it get to that point. And they're going to know not to take it to that point. Sometimes people might test you, but if people know who you are and what you're capable of, why are you going through all that? That's a waste of your energy. You have things that you need to do. Why are you disciplining somebody you're supposed to be in a relationship with? You don't have to raise somebody, to raise your partner. For what? They should be working with you, not under you. There's a lot wrong with that mindset, man.
You know what? I appreciate it, bro, because you always come strong, man, and you always articulate your point so clearly, man. I appreciate it. And you know what? It's interesting because I think when I first watched it, when he said domestic discipline, I said, what? But I was like, I don't know where you're going with this, but I think what do you want? It's interesting because I think we kind of knew he was kind of going there, right? Because of the whole rhetoric that he's brought the whole entire time since he's been Kevin Samuels, who we know to be this particular character now. And I'm not talking his past behaviors, but as soon as he started talking about women, the energy he brought towards talking about black women specifically, he was always going there. That misogynistic energy that he was bringing, you know, that chauvinistic energy he was bringing, the disrespectful energy he was bringing, you're bound to go towards the physical. Anybody who knows how physical abuse actually begins, it starts emotional. So all that stuff of making women judge themselves and then saying the 7 can't exist, and when they say they're 6 and you say no, you're 5, all that kind of stuff may seem innocent, but actually it was the road to hell. And actually that's how you get to a physical abuse. So now we're lightly kind of talking about abusing somebody, but calling it another name to make it lighter than it actually is, right? It's a bit like when someone does abuse somebody and we kind of change the name to, no, you mean he was being rude? No, he was being abusive. Okay, like don't say he was rude. He was being abusive, right? Because we want to lighten the kind of mood. So this, when I heard domestic discipline, I was like, what? And then when he explained it, I said, Walt. I said, sir, you are advocating for DV, right? You are advocating for domestic violence. That's actually what you're estimating. Because how do I know? How do we have a conversation beforehand? I mean, I'm jumping ahead of the video here, but
Man.
how do we jump? How do you have a conversation with a woman beforehand for her to consent that you should discipline her in a moment where she's out of check? How do I gauge?
Man, honestly, when it comes to those types of things, I honestly feel like that's a kink. In which there's a very small section where people have these type of kinks where one person is submissive, the other person is dominant, and they do these role-playing type of things. It's sexual, but there are clear boundaries that need to be defined even in those parameters, right? So even if you're doing something with a partner and you guys like to role-play in that manner, and you like to do all types of kinky stuff in that way, there's still things that need to happen to reassure each partner that, okay, this is not going to go left. So that's what's happening in that area. That doesn't seem like what he's talking about here. It seems like this is an effort to assert dominance over one person, in which case you've already manipulated her to believing that she has to come under you. And then it becomes this type of gameplay where you would like her to almost come out of herself in that way to try and test you, so that you can also then put her in
a place,
and then want to assert your dominance to make you feel better. It's all for your ego. It's all to play towards your ego. And she's still put in a position to where she has to serve you, but she's thinking it's a back and forth.
Yeah.
It's really manipulative, and he's led up to it little by little.
Yes.
It's not far off that you'll begin to see him saying, okay, now you have to assert yourself. You have to give her a quick slap on the face. Just a little tap.
Yeah.
Just a little tap. You have to give her a little push. You have to give her a little shake sometimes. Those types of things is what this leads to. And even if he's not saying that, it's too easy for other people to interpret it that way. Because the type of people that listen to him, he knows his audience. And he knows what they're about. He knows what they like to do. He knows how they like their egos to be stroked. He's going to want to feed into that. So they keep on listening, and they reaffirming whatever, he's validating whatever they want to do, essentially. It's all downhill. It's like he's he's been playing around with a lot of verbiage and a lot of things just to make sure that he keeps on that line. But now that he's at a point where he has a solid
base,
he's out of here.
All right, let's watch a little bit of the clip, and then we'll discuss some more. It's crazy stuff.
Kevin, I have a question. Sure. Because I do see that where the 20-year-olds are wanting to learn more, and are looking to other resources besides their mother. However, us in our 30s that looked at, our parents that taught us to be independent and do all that, and we looked to that like they were our guiding light and guided us in a wrong path. But yet these 20-year-olds now are like, no. So what is the change or the difference of them and us, where we look to them, our older generation that steered a lot of us the completely wrong path. But there's not a lot of women of my age that are teaching 20-year-olds what not to do. However, they are knowing what not to do and not to listen to the bitterness of the 30 or 40-year-olds.
I got it. Because before Corona, y'all was in the same club. Y'all was competition. See, Generation X was never in the club with Silent Generation. That just didn't happen. The old people went to the club, went to Trevis, and the young folks went to the Palladium. And those two never met. But women, your generation you're talking about, in the 30s, and the 20-somethings are in the same club. Same environment, same dating apps, because you're competing for the same men. So they're looking and saying, why I'm 24 and you 34. Why do I need to listen to your 34-year-old self if you in the same damn club with me? That's why they're looking past and not even going to y'all, because y'all are competing perfectly for the same men. I think the way women in the 30s are going to start getting the message is when women like yourself in your 30s start winning after losing.
I mean, this is all conversation that leads up to this particular thing. So it's really interesting because the conversation hasn't got there yet. But they're talking about the different ages of women, and I guess having the older woman talk to the younger women. And he makes a point about the fact that obviously now after Corona, everyone's in the same place. So I guess obviously the younger women are looking at the older women like, well, if you're in the same place as me, how are you going to talk to me? But what's your thoughts, bro?
This man is very tactical.
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing that I wanted to dissect is that when it comes to the whole domestic violence thing is Kevin Samuels doesn't even allow disrespect on his platform. Go back and forth with people. He doesn't allow them to go back and forth with him. He doesn't allow people to speak over him. These are all non-physical ways that he asserts himself.
Yes.
When somebody crosses that boundary, he exits. He's like, no, you got to get out of here. He knows how to control himself, and yet now he's proposing something different with a different type of person. If somebody is disrespectful on his platform, he excuses them. He's like, nah, I don't allow that here. So then if you're moving that way for yourself, why are you now telling other people to do something different? You're telling other people to engage with other people who are going to disrespect them so that they can then engage in the domestic violence. But he doesn't adhere to that himself. So then why are you proposing a different strategy for other people? Just an afterthought.
No, it's a real thought.
Like, it's not clicking for me personally.
What if he can't? But what if he can't? Like you were saying, what if he can't control in those environments though? Like on an app, you can X somebody. You can't X somebody when they're in real life. You know that some people become internet warriors, keyboard warriors when they're on the internet, but they have no chat when you see them face to face. Potentially, that's why he has to advocate for this, because there is no level of assertiveness, no level of dominance that he brings to the table in real life.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. But then you'd still need that person's consent, and that's where the manipulation gets involved there. And that's what goes into this, right? I think this is another key step for him to be able to manipulate women by prioritizing and categorizing them, right?
Yeah.
He's saying, okay, the women in their 30s who can't find a man are also with the women in their 20s who are also trying to find a man as well, right? But he's also it seems as if he's trying to create division amongst the women in the sense that, okay, y'all are on the same level. And if a man has to choose, he's going to go with the younger woman. So then why would he choose you over the younger woman? So now he's deprioritizing the older woman even more to make them feel even more or less valued. Like they have
Yep.
to work harder to be able to appease men and try to do more things, which is already the society that we live in. It's already easy to do that. If you have a woman who's been focused on herself or just hasn't had the greatest luck, and now she's in her 30s, and now she feels as if she's competing with women in their 20s who are younger, who are also more easily manipulated because they don't have as many experiences, or they're just being conditioned a lot more when they're at a younger age. You don't have to worry about the women in their 20s. You have to worry about is the women in their 30s who have more experience and are willing to speak up. But if they feel more devalued, or if they don't have as much of a space or more of a say, you have to control them more. So if you deprioritize them and make them feel like they have to chase after you because you are the prize, now this becomes a much easier of a chess game to be able to master. It's all subtle manipulation, but on a massive level. That's why he's very tactical in what he's trying to do. And there's many different facets. The woman who's asking the question, she already played into it.
Yep. She's under the illusion, bro.
And that's why the other woman, she's just like, what is this guy talking about?
Yeah, Kay, whenever, so I've watched a few of their shows. Whenever Kevin Samuels comes on, Kay does not talk. Kay be like, he is talking trash, but she doesn't talk.
Why doesn't she talk? That's my question. Because if she doesn't talk, then she's allowing him to do whatever he wants. I don't know if she's intimidated. She doesn't seem like the type.
Doesn't seem like the type either. But maybe she feels like she can't win that battle on a verbal level.
Yeah. That's what
that's it. Because he does argue quite well, if I'm honest with you. I'm not saying he's the greatest debater, but he does argue quite well in terms of getting his point across, whether he's truthful, lying, or whether it doesn't make sense. He's a good way. He knows how to put his point across. And I think many women oftentimes argue from a standpoint of emotion and don't take time to logically flesh out their issues, so that when they come to the table, he's going to beat you because he's going to come logically. He's not going to get emotional about the situation. And I think sometimes when women are approaching that table, they're arguing from that emotional standpoint. So as soon as he says that's an emotional standpoint, you're getting more hyped, more annoyed, and the conversation is lost. You need to argue from a logical standpoint if you're arguing with Kevin Samuels, because that's where he's coming from. He's not coming from an emotional standpoint. That's what should be more.
That's what's going to be the tipping point, in my opinion. The younger folks, they got time and they'll get better. My generation, it's pretty much done for. But the women. I mean, and here's the thing: I don't begrudge them, because unlike a man, women don't get a choice to have 3 different lives. Biologically, things are different. But I'm more concerned with what happens to the women who, between 18 and 35, may have made the decisions that were put into us by culture, mainstream media, and all other kind of stuff, and then openly decided to go back to the things that worked for the generations before us, to really live by those things and end up having a better second half than the first half.
Let me pause it there, because I think this is part of the setup to the conversation. It's a really important part, because he's now setting it up to be what happens when people start trying to live with the old ideals in this current crop generation, because that's how he's going to link to the domestic discipline. Do you see what I'm saying?
Because that's what they used to do.
That's what they used to do. Okay. Because they didn't know no better. Okay. But that's healthy.
But my thing is, just because that's what they used to do, or that's what tradition is, that doesn't mean that it can be properly applied to this newer generation. You have people that think differently, that operate differently, and the circumstances are also different. Back then, you had men who were providing totally for the household. His audience is not made up of men who are providing totally for the household.
Yep.
You have men who are trying to grasp for power, who want to be stroked, but they're also not in the position of the types of men that he's usually talking about, even though that doesn't match his audience. He's talking about these high-value men who have a lot of money, who can be able to adhere to that old traditional household standard. But the men that he's speaking to most often are not able to do that, because there are a lot of what he would consider average men. So then if you know that your audience is listening to this type of thing, and domestic violence is easy to slip into, why are you even bringing this up when it does not apply? That's my question. Like, you're trying to bring up traditional values and standards of the way that people did things, even when it's wrong. You know that, like, okay, it may not apply to everyone, and the way that I'm thinking about it could easily go one way or the other. But he's really sneaky about the way that he's doing these things. Like, he's very particular about the words that he uses, and even the pace at which he uses them.
Yep.
It's actually really ridiculous.
Manipulative. I'm with you on that, bro. I'm with you on that. Good points.
That is going to make a bigger impact, because that's a choice that women can make. You can choose to either stay on the path you're going, or back up and go down a new road. I think that's where all the possibility really comes from for us, though.
Hey, Kev, go ahead.
Go ahead, JR.
Hey, Kev, I got a question. Before you hopped on, we was talking about the woman's tongue. An example that I used was my sister just having no respect for the man, and I talked about how men do not have to give respect in order to receive respect. That men should just give respect off GP. And I was just kind of just blown, because like my sister felt the need that she not only tried to disrespect me, but when my grandfather was in the house and said he didn't want no yelling in the house, she just totally disregarded him. And my concern is that even in marriages, like relationships, and just even as strangers, that women feel that it's okay to disrespect a man. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna use it a couple of ways and tie it into something I heard earlier.
Before he goes further, I saw you shaking your head, so
Nah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. That's, okay, there's a lot of things going on in what that gentleman said.
Yeah.
And I can understand where he's coming from. I genuinely understand that, like, people can disrespect another person and they'll feel like it's okay. That's the issue, though. What's happening with his sister is not just for women in regards to men. That's a people thing. Like, men disrespect other men and think they can get away with it.
Yeah.
Seen this recently with the Fresh and Fit podcast and all that.
I just watched it. Yeah, I'd seen it.
All they're disrespecting each other.
Preach. Yeah.
Bruh, are you going to tell me that the same thing doesn't apply there? Like, you have men who are really talking out the sides of their necks and get themselves into trouble with other men. The same thing kind of applies there, right? They thought that they could just speak on whatever they wanted to speak on and have no repercussions. That's exactly what he's talking about with his sister, in which she's talking out the side of her neck and expecting no repercussions. That's not relegated to just women. On top of that, you see that with your sister. You understand that there's an issue there in regards to the household and how she speaks to other people. That is an issue with her that needs to be resolved. You cannot take that issue with her and then generalize it to all women. He may have that experience with a lot of other different women, but then I would have to ask, okay, is there a confirmation bias in which you have already like you've already programmed your mind to seek out those sort of things because of your experience with your sister? Or is it the women that you are attracted to or the women that you choose to be around in which you're seeing this consistent behavior? Because you don't see that with every single woman in your life, but you're saying women in general do that, right? So now you're asking Kevin Samuels, who's already advocating for domestic violence or domestic discipline, to then speak on how speak on a generalization of how women regard men in terms of disrespect. So what you're saying is we should respond to disrespect with violence or with physical discipline, as if they're children, as if they're beneath us. That's one speaks to how you view women in general. But also, it shows that you don't respect your partner.
Yeah.
You allow yourself to be with someone who does not respect you.
Respect you.
The whole relationship is already done up. It's already messed up. Because it's just like, why would you allow yourself to associate with somebody that you have already seen can possibly disrespect you unaddressed.
Yeah.
Like, that's a communication issue. That's a discernment issue. That's a misalignment issue. If it's really that much of an issue for you, then you wouldn't be around those types of people, and yet you're bringing it up. You've allowed certain things. You've allowed people to cross certain boundaries, or you've seen other people allowed to cross certain boundaries around you, and you haven't done anything. That's what's being implied. I can only go based off of the clip.
Yeah.
Life, right? So there's a lot of things that are messed up in regards to even the question that's being asked.
Yeah.
I don't even think it reflects women in general, because there's too many kinds of women, a lot of whom would actually respect the men in their lives. So then what is the actual question here? Are you asking for validation so that you can then proceed with physical abuse? Like, what exactly are you asking for here? What is this a defense for? I don't understand.
I think as well, watching things like this, I think a lot of the time the generalization is based on a smaller group of women and not the majority consensus. Because like I'll be honest, like the majority of women I've met, I've never seen them get physical with a man myself when it comes to a heated argument. Don't get twisted. I've had an encounter before where a girl punched me in the face before, but that's a very rarity. Again, it's not something that happens on a regular thing. Do you know what I'm saying? If anything, I see the opposite. I've seen it more times being a more physical altercation from a man to a woman. And, one thing you have to remember as well that, I call this biblically, that the Bible says that we see women as the weaker vessel, right? So the way I'm going to treat you, not necessarily like you're not a weaker partner. I need to understand that physically there is a difference, right? There's a difference, right? We look at Olympics, we talk about sports, we can see already physically there is a difference in the vessel that each individual person carries, right? Intellectually, we can meet, but physically, in most cases, we cannot. So if I'm having to discipline you on a physical realm, I've already lost control of this environment, this situation, our interaction. And I've always said that men are the ones who set the temperature and the pace and the tempo for their relationship. You are the captain to the ship. So if the captain has to start striking his colleagues, we've got a problem. That means already you yourself have not set out your stalls correctly. Like you said, either you haven't chosen the right person, or you yourself have a disrespect and disregard for the person in front of you because you don't know how to lead effectively without being physically violent to the partner that you have, right? To the partner that you have. And I think what he's saying here is coming up to the disrespectful part with the sister. Listen, I actually hear him about the disrespect, right? We've all got people in our families that maybe while out, do the most, whatever, right? But it's like you said, it's how it's premised, as if women do this and expect no repercussions. Like I said, I think it's a much smaller minority of women that will do this and don't care what the man's reaction is. But the majority of women, let me tell you something. If you've been out clubbing and anything like that, when men even when men are doing their whole dancing to a very crazy song, let's say Rick Ross, whatever, right? And we start doing our little pit, whatever in the middle, right? Watch how the women run this way. They don't try to get involved. It's a scary thing to have a man at his most aggressive moments. So to even bring that in as a situation where my sister's whiling and I'm thinking to myself, what am I going to think to myself? I need to, because she's been disrespectful, I need to get aggressive. No, I need to try and bring you down. You know what I'm saying? I need to calm you down, or I need to remove myself from the situation because that's not the right thing to be doing right now. And I think when you have power, the greatest thing is about how do you restrain from using that power incorrectly. As Spider-Man might say, with great power comes great responsibility. Do you know what I'm saying?
No, but you hit it on the head, like for real. Like it comes to a point where if you know that if you can beat somebody up, just plainly, if you know that you are the one in the position of power, you're going to move differently with how you in regards to how you react to certain things, because you know what you can do. I have this cousin, right? His name is Chief. This guy is basically Simpson. He nobody bothers him just because of his stature alone. His stature alone, you're not gonna talk crazy to this guy. You have this one other guy, right? He likes to play around and stuff like that. They banter back and forth or whatever. But whenever he gets crazy, Chief just picks him up by the legs and just throws him over the shoulder, and then he walks around. the guy has nothing that he can do, right? Like, even though they were just playing around, if it came down to it, where they were actually going blow for blow, there'd be no question. It would be easy, right? Because we all understand that this guy, Chief, even though he's a teddy bear, you don't mess with him. And in those types of situations, women are also often faced with dynamics in which they don't know what the other person is capable of.
Thinking, yeah, capable of, yeah.
It's very often men. And when they
Yeah.
see a whole bunch of different attacks happening just to people on the streets,
Streets.
if they're engaged with somebody who is more physically capable than them, or just even a man in general, they're more often than not, they're going to be in a position where they don't want to engage, or they don't want to escalate things, and they don't want things to get to a certain place. Of course, you have an exception to the rule, but that's exactly what it is.
An exception to the rule.
Not the rule in general. I don't like the premise of that question, man.
Yeah, I know, bro. I know. You know where it's going.
If we can't hold anybody accountable that we are directly tied to, we can't have a community. You used to get a whooping by Mr. Brown if Mr. Brown saw you doing something wrong, because you were accountable to the community, not just your mama and daddy. I'm gonna leave that sitting right there. The women today don't fear what Sean Connery told Barbara Walters. There are times when the best course of action is to slap a woman. That's what Sean Connery said. It's still on YouTube right now. Go look at it. And
Yo, did you hear what he said?
Bruh,
He's quoting Sean Connery, by the way, as well. So no excuse to him either.
bruh. First part, the reference he used for the community. You could get a beating from this person or that person. That's when you're a child. Woman. If you actually see a grown woman as your equal, you're not going to treat her like a child. You're not going to treat her like somebody who deserves a beating whenever they get out of hand. If you see somebody is getting out of hand, then you control yourself in a way that is appropriate for that situation. You're not going to handle yourself in any type of way and then put your hands on someone as if they are your child. The mindset that's coming from that is very indicative of where he's trying to come from in terms of trying to grasp for power. Right? The only way that you can beat someone or give someone a whooping in a community is if you are above them, is if you are in a place of authority. And that's what he's trying to grasp for.
Yep.
Like, how did we get here? If we actually are talking about people we are in relationships with, why are we treating them like our children? Why do you want another responsibility? That's what it is. Not only are you paying for them, you are raising them. Why are you in a relationship with somebody that you have to raise up, that you have to train up like a child? Are you kidding me? Is that what we're doing right now? You're paying for their housing, for their food, you're paying for their transportation. Are you going to take them to school? What is going on? Why are you in a relationship with somebody that you feel like you have to make sure that they are subservient to you and they are obedient to you? You're asking for a child. And which makes sense if you're looking for someone who's super young, who doesn't have a lot of experience. I guess that would make sense. But then essentially what that is to me is brainwashing. Because you're taking someone who doesn't have a lot of experience, and now you're also using the threat of domestic discipline, and you're also taking care of this person. It's creating a very controlling power dynamic in which you're controlling their whole life and how they see you, because now they don't want to be apart from you because of the privileges that you grant them. But then also they're afraid that if they do something, they may get disciplined. These are the dynamics of being raised in a toxic household under like toxic parents. And you're saying you want to bring that into a relationship. It's not beneficial for either party, because now they're damaged or now they're in fear and you have more of a responsibility. That person is a liability, if anything. You don't want to be in a relationship like that. You want to be somebody who is your co-equal, somebody who can think on the same level as you. And if they are thinking on the same level as you, you don't need to enforce domestic violence. domestic discipline or whatever that is. It does not make, it's not aligning for me. It's not making sense. It's not.
I'm hearing you on that, bro. Yeah, brother. Yeah, he set up so nicely to do that, man. And again, this is all part of the manipulation tactic to get us to that final stage, where we now are being accepting of abuse and calling it domestic discipline, right? And precisely the point that you put in there, about the interchange, which is that the child to the adult in a community that if you saw a woman getting flogged, you'd ask them questions, bro. Like you'd be wondering, why are you getting flogged? You're a fully fledged adult. Now, the little clip around the ear to the little kid who's being cheeky or whatever, we are aware of those things, right? Because kids are still forming, they're still growing, they're still learning how to be better adults or growing into being better adults, right? But this person's now an adult, and you clipping them around the ear is actually degrading. It's actually it's actually you removing their agency to be an individual and an adult of their own decision making, right? We understand there are consequences in this life, but it shouldn't be a case of the fact that you're a grown-ass adult and someone's going to domestically hit you.
Excuse me?
I don't even know, sir.
Excuse me?
Don't know, sir. That's Kevin C's.
Bruh, somebody get their names, bro. This is ridiculous.
Bro, it's mad, cuz just to rewind it slightly so that people can understand what we're talking about. This last few seconds were mad.
That's what Sean Connery said. It's still on YouTube right now. Go look at it. And Barbara Walters was like, thought he was going to recant his statement, and he doubled down. He said, let me explain what I mean. He's like, women have a way of not knowing how to let things go. You can give up the argument. You can let it go. They can know they've won. There's nothing else to be gained, and they will continue to push and push and push. And he said, at that point, once you've exhausted all other options, then a slap becomes a good option.
A slap becomes a good option to your wife. We've now advocated for DV, by the way. A slap becomes a good option at the point where the woman is talking too much. So you couldn't remove yourself. You couldn't say, let me step outside. You couldn't say, listen, let me leave it let me leave it today. You couldn't do any of those things. You had to go for a slap. That's what I'm saying. It very quickly will turn into DV. Because at what point, I told you to stop. You're still going on? Slap. I told you I don't want to argue about this today. Slap. Blood. And the way this will be abused so quickly, there's no way we can institute this and call it being domestic discipline, because this will turn into literally a domestic violence situation indefinitely. Right. And we've been taught in this generation as well, in this Western society, how to de-escalate situations. Right. This is I mean, even people who are negotiative terrorists, it's not, you don't go in there gung ho, you negotiate. Those who are dealing with people who are a gunsman, they negotiate. And I mean that in the sense of they de-escalate the situation. Why? We don't want a bomb going off. We don't want someone going off on a mad one. We de-escalate the situation as best as we can, right? So for me, a de-escalation does not involve me slapping you. It involves me walking away and removing myself from the situation. Not because I'm scared I'm going to hit you, but because it's not worth me continuing this argument if you're going on to 10 and you're not willing to come down. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not worth it.
Bruh. At this point, I feel like we've already dissected why this is not a good option.
Absolutely.
My mind has immediately gone to, okay, what would make him want to choose this, make this decision, right? My mind immediately went to a dissection of his character, an analysis of his character. We already know that, in his past, he's already been accused of being, people have accused him of being gay.
Yeah.
Right? And because of his nature, because of his stature, the way that he presents himself, the way that he's always had this affinity and stuff like that, people have always questioned it, right? Mind you, he's also had 2 divorces, or he is divorced and stuff in that regard, right? My mind connects the dots in this way. I may be wrong, I may be right, I don't know. But my mind goes to, okay, he's grown up with people questioning his sexuality, even though he may be sure of it. So in efforts to try and assert himself, he has tried to gain status, money, wealth, a life of luxury. And now it has come to a point where, because he feels like he's not masculine enough, he will do things to assert himself in a way that you would have to respect him as masculine. So then if he feels disrespected and you're not listening to him, then he's going to enforce the physical
Masculinity. Yeah.
in an attempt to make sure that he clings on to that masculinity, because it's not very solid for him. So he needs to do things to make him feel like, okay, yeah, I'm still the man in this. Nobody's going to question in this relationship whether or not I am the masculine authority within this dynamic. If someone chooses to cross a certain boundary, I will then make sure that they understand physically that I'm not to be trifled with. This is the mindset that I think is cultivated as he's grown up, because there's no other way that if you are actually an alpha, for example, I forgot the dude's name, but from Ready to Love, the big masculine, like the big brolic dude.
What, Kalfani?
Kalfani. Do you think that he's going to enter into a relationship in which someone is going back and forth with him in a debate or an argument or whatever it is, that he's then going to choose to put his hands on that woman? He doesn't have to. She already knows what it is. This guy's gonna box me if I act out. Even if you are a loudmouth, you're not going to get very close. You're not going to be within arm's reach, right? You're not going to let things escalate to get to that point. It's only when you feel like where you feel like you're a man who has to be able to do those things to make sure that people understand. Right? So I don't even think this is an option for sane thinking people, for people who actually have a partner who mutually respects them. You're not going to think to take things to that level. But in his particular situation, I see why he would think, okay, this is a valuable option that I should keep on hand, and make sure that she knows that I would use this just in case, if anything, just as a buffer.
Yeah.
To be able to maintain and to hold on to
power,
authority and power.
Yep.
My ego, because he doesn't want that to be questioned. That's just where my mind goes.
Bro, I'm with you, man. I'm with you. Like I said, all of this is to institute dominance, man. Do you know what I mean? This is all to institute dominance and to promote self-servience. You know what I mean? And for me, like I said, this has been coming. This is the culmination, and we're almost at the brink of the finishing product of what he wants to promote. Do you know what I mean? And this is why I say that when when we're saying about how dangerous he was, it wasn't because he had said these things at the beginning, but it was the energy he was carrying that led him to there, right? And oftentimes this comes from a place of insecurity. Honestly, it comes from a place of insecurity. Being unable to secure your position, being unable to lead very well, being unable to assert yourself without being dominant is the issue. A lot of men like him struggle because of what they've suffered in the past. Maybe they were grown up in a certain way where they weren't respected or taken seriously, and so it's almost like you are kind of trying to correct the past. Like, you are going to take me seriously. Like, you are going to surrender. Like, it's not going to run like it did when I was a kid. And actually what they've done is an overcorrect.
Yep.
And they don't realize that because it's all about self, and it's all about ego, and it's all about them. And it stops being about loving and caring for your partner and being about, I got to make sure I show you can never done me a dance like they did to me in the past. And so it stops being really about the relationship, and really about just you. And you just trying to show, like you were saying, that you can't take me for idiot. But that's not what's happening. What you're actually kind of reliving in your trauma. Basically, you're actually living in your trauma from the past more times. And really, what should be happening is that there should, like I said, this should be a walkaway situation, but you've chosen violence because you want to correct the mistakes of the past. And for me, yeah, that want to need to hold on to power in those instances screams insecurity, big time. All right, let's bring this last few points. He's closing in.
And you only have to do it once. Shahrazad Ali tried to say that stuff and it set the black community on fire. Why is this? Because between the men on this platform right now, if we were in public, we have to moderate what we say, whether we know each other or not, because there's a low-level threat of violence and aggression between all men. Fuck YouTube, fuck degrees, fuck money. You cross a certain line with a man, we're gonna have to shoot the fair one. We know that. You can be in a wheelchair, you can be on a crutch, you can, whatever. You can be special. You got to do that. But see, there's no low-level threat of violence between women and men today. Women are allowed to be verbally disrespectful beyond the point of reason because there's no consequence, because they don't fear the repercussion. So listening to that, and this is why anybody familiar with the concept of domestic discipline?
And pause it there before he gets into that final stretch of the run. What's your thoughts, sir?
Is the rhetoric there that we should treat women like men? Is that what he's trying to communicate? Because
in some sense,
but to me that conflicts with how. Okay. For example, he related women to treating women as if they are children. But even in those instances, right? Usually there would be more of compassion. There would be more of a sense of, okay, I want to take care of you, right? Because you are a child. With what he's presenting, it's relating women to children, but they are also not safe. There should be a low-level threat of violence so that women stay in their place. Does that sound like a place that we should put anybody in?
That's essentially what we're saying, yeah.
Right? Like, what is he actually trying to communicate as a whole? Like, from the beginning to what he's stating right now, it sounds like he wants to place women in a toxic household to the point where they only do what you say. They don't get crazy. And if they do get crazy, you make sure that you enforce that physical discipline
to in their place.
So they stay in their place. What is it that you're advocating for women right now? Like, why would they want to be in this type of dynamic with you if you're doing that? Any healthy relationship does not have that type of dynamic. So then what is he actually proposing right now? When you really look at it in total, like as a whole, you can really see like, oh no, he wants women to be abused. He wants women to at least feel threatened, to at least feel like, okay, I can't just express myself.
Yeah.
Right? There's a difference between someone deliberately disrespecting you, in which case you take yourself out of the situation. But you don't want to be disrespected. You end the conversation right there. It doesn't go any further. If someone continues to disregard your boundaries, you take yourself out because you know what can happen. They know what can happen.
Exactly.
They continually get in your face and they're trying to escalate things even more. That's not the situation that anybody wants to be in, right? Because you know that it can get to that level. But he's saying, okay, no, invite that, press into that, accept that, right? He's saying, no, press into that to show them what can happen to them
if they ever step out of line.
Ever step out of line, or to show other people. That sort of thing it's giving me cult vibes. You know what I mean? It's giving me like heavy controlling vibes, as if like, okay, I want to make sure that I make an example out of you or out of the situation so that you understand never to
what is
or mess with even other people, because there will always be that low level threat of violence. You want women to be scared.
Yeah.
Because I don't even think that that low level threat of violence should be amongst men. It shouldn't be there. We shouldn't have to have that.
Yep.
I understand you can see it as a buffer, but why would you want that buffer for women? Would you want that buffer for your daughter, for her to feel that there's a low level of threat of violence for every man that she encounters? Is that what you want? Like, it's always different when it applies to you and to your family. You know what I mean? Like, it's always different when it applies to those who belong to you. Why? What is going on? What's really going on? I don't get it.
Bro, like I said, people are trying to demand respect, but they're snatching it. That's honestly the truth of what's happening here. People are trying to demand respect, but are snatching it, but the low level of violence, yeah, I mean, to be honest, and again, this why goes back to that point I made about the fact that when we're talking about men and women, God made women as the weaker vessel. We are not in the same league, bro. We are not even the same. We're the same, but not the same. I don't give birth. I don't have a vagina between my legs. Okay. All right. So we don't treat each other the same. We have equity in the way we treat each other. Right. So there's ways that women are treated that men will never be treated in. Right. When we have certain rules that can be seen as double standards, which I agree. But in some cases, those double standards have to exist due to power dynamics. Right. So, you can't always put the same slap sticker on the same situation for both parties. It's unfortunate, but she doesn't have a penis. I have a penis. She doesn't have one, right? So you know what I'm saying? Like, we have different things about us, and so therefore, asking for women to almost be thrown into the same dynamics that us men have is crazy, right? And again, like I said, because they are the weaker vessel. Right. And so a lot of these times when we're talking about these things, we institute women to being thrown them into these examples, right? And I hear it. Us men, when we meet one another, we don't talk too much smack, because if we do, it can turn into a fight. But here's the thing: shouldn't even be something that we should be doing. Number one, and number two, okay, when it does happen, oftentimes, I can keep saying, the vessels are supposed to be on some type of equal level. And even then, like you said, we're not on equal levels, because there are some people like Chief who are much bigger than others and much stronger and much quicker. When you run with Sane, you go, no, you were the same vessel, but you couldn't run Sane's race. Right? So we understand, just because you have power and your strength doesn't mean I have to use it and abuse it. So yeah, asking for women to be in the same position or low level tolerance, as he was saying, really is asking for a very cruel world. It's asking for a world where we are all equals, and we are all uniformed, but it's not that way, right? And it couldn't work that way, because why are we asking? Because what part of Kevin Samuel's thing is that women are looking for these high earning value men. Well, high earning value men are not looking for men; they're looking for women.
Exactly.
Which this. They need to have that difference, because that's what they're looking for. They're not looking for another man. Do you understand?
Last thing, what he's saying is actually very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's a reason why we're talking about this right now, because at least statistics in America show that 1 in 3 women, they face domestic violence. They face a lot of cases of sexual assault and all those types of things within their partnerships. Just in their partnerships alone. We're not even talking about in general. We're not talking about in terms of family. We're not talking about in terms of friendships or any other type of relationships, just partnerships alone. And it's 1 in 4 in general, like globally. That's already a high level. What he's proposing is to actually increase that with this low level threat of violence, in which case, if a woman does anything that a man does not like or does not favor, he can then propose that threat of violence or this domestic discipline in a relationship. What do you think that is going to do for the current state of relationships in general, when things are already polarizing, right? Like, people already feel at odds with one another. At least in the Black community, it feels like now more than ever that men and women have been opposing one another. If you're not proposing this low level threat of violence between men and women, you're actually putting women in danger, in more danger actually, because they're already they already feel like they can't trust men in general. Now you're saying, okay, there should be a low level threat of violence. Why would they want to engage with any men? You're actually making it worse for the men. You're making it worse for the men, because now the women don't even want to come near if men are acting like that. And now the women don't get anything either, and they also feel like they're at danger all the time.
Yeah.
How does this help anyone? How does this act like? What is the end goal with what he's trying to propose here? That is my question.
Dominance of a global dominance. That's what he's looking for.
No,
domestic discipline in a nutshell is me and Courtney are married, and Courtney and I are vibing, but Courtney knows that she can get on one sometimes, and we sit down and say, when you get on one, and after we go through the process, and I use the safe word, banana split, and you still stay on one after I say banana split. You heard me say banana split. I acknowledge you heard me say banana split, and you stay on one. Well, then it's time for the domestic discipline. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Lay across the knee and on our ass. Sexual spanking. I am not kidding. I am not kidding. And what I will do is I will put the links to the women who teach this stuff. And this has been talked about in sectors of the manosphere. It's adult correction.
I've never heard of that before in my entire life.
I hadn't heard of it until I got here on YouTube, but I'd heard of the concept, but I didn't hear it that way. And the thing is, it doesn't, and it's nonviolent. And here's the point.
So he's talking from a perspective. He's talking from a perspective of that he heard this from women YouTubers who were instituting this as a teaching to other women.
So you're telling me that other women are teaching other women how to be disciplined in this way? Is that what he's proposing?
That's what he's basically saying. Yeah. But he's saying it's a dope correction now. So basically, he's gonna try and take it on.
So it sounds as if it's the blind leading the blind. It sounds as if these are women who have been manipulated, and they're now teaching other women how to do the same thing.
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Right? Like, why else? Because this only benefits the man. It does not benefit the woman in the situation. But then it goes back to my original point. If you know that you are engaging with women who can disrespect you in a certain type of way, why are you engaging with them? If they are crossing your boundaries, why are you allowing that to continue to happen? Like, why are you in a relationship with that type of person? That only causes you stress. That only gives you something else that you feel you have to do in order to hurt yourself. It only gives you something else on your task list. Someone who's actually focused on what they're trying to do and trying to be in a healthy relationship, they don't have any time for these types of things. So even if they were inclined to be open to this, they don't have time to actually do it, right? People who are actually focused on their goals, people who are actually trying to create a legacy, people who are actually trying to uplift themselves and actually create better for themselves, why would they want to resort to this type of tactic? Unless people have their kinks or whatever, that's role playing, that's consensual, and it's something that they do to a certain end. What is the end goal here? That is, again, my question. What is the purpose of this, and what are you trying to accomplish? If it's just for your own personal dominance and assertion, then there's an issue, because now you're not seeing the person as an equal. You're seeing as someone who is beneath you, who needs to be taught a lesson, right? I don't understand why you would engage with a person like that if you know that you don't want your boundaries to be crossed in that manner. It's as simple as that.
Bro, I'm with you on this, bro. Last minute of the thing. Or just this.
Can you imagine being a grown woman and you got to hear banana split and you know you should have stopped and you kept on going, and then you and the woman has to volunteer for this. She volunteers to do this. It's not coerced, and it doesn't rise to the point of respect. Lay down, get the paddle out. All right, now, Courtney, you know, banana split, and you just think about the psychological thing. Like, I am 34 years old, and I'm having to get swatted or hit with my hand. and who teaches this? Women teach other women. What was that woman's name? I'm gonna put her name down in the comment section, and I want you guys to understand the spirit in which it was saying, because this can get really misinterpreted.
Yeah, we get you. We adults.
But the thing is, the notion is that women know that the power of life and death resides in the tongue, and you use that instead of using it for our benefit, turning it against your men to the point to where you should not have to fear the venom that's potentially in the tongue of your women. Your enemy should have to fear that, not.
Right, he said it himself.
This could go.
You should not have to fear what's coming. Like, if you know the type of person that you're in a relationship with, you know what's unacceptable, and you know what's acceptable to the both of you. Why are you allowing yourself to be in a relationship with that type of person, knowing that they will cross your boundaries? Fully understanding that this grown person has to respect you, and you're allowing it so that you can then assert yourself for what reason, right? He said himself, this 30-something-year-old person has to be disciplined by you for what?
With a paddle.
To them. Yeah, I mean, I could get into the way that he demonstrated even the swatting or whatever.
Yeah, it was a bit.
It's just like, why? What type of mindset are you coming from?
Yep.
He's talking about the ideas that he's presenting, and they're honestly trash. They're honestly trash. They're not helpful. They don't create a sustainable relationship, long-term relationship, in which both parties are benefited from this. He's creating a dynamic in which one party now has to submit to a low-level threat of violence, and the other person's ego has to be stroked. But then also, a person with that mindset might not be conducive or might not be able to have a long-term relationship because nobody wants to be around that type of person.
Yep.
To be around a person who you always have to fear a low-level threat of violence for or from. Like this, I don't understand how this actually works. But then he tries to get away with it by saying, "Oh no, women proposed this." How do those ideas?
I got that.
Those ideas
and you can remember the name as well. I said that's a bit tricky.
It's just somewhere out in the sphere, somewhere out there. You'll find it. Just look for it somehow, and you'll stumble upon these women who are telling other women to submit to domestic discipline. And mind you, they don't know the name, so it's just women out here. Go and find that for yourself. We don't know where those ideas came from. How did those ideas come about? How did they agree upon these types of things? What's the rules for it? Again, the source has to still come from a man who's enforcing that.
Yep.
A woman is not going to go to a man and say, "Hey, can you I get out
discipline
of hand.
Me?
Just discipline me whenever I get out of hand." Excuse me? What grown woman in their 30s or 40s is going to ask for discipline from a grown man?
Especially if she's healthy.
It has to come from a man and has to be enforced by a man. So at the end of the day, it's another scapegoat. A scapegoat that we still don't even know the identity of. We don't know how he stumbled upon these things. It's just out there somehow. Listen, man, I ain't got time for this. I ain't got time for the shenanigans, bro.
Listen, I'm gonna leave it there. You know what I mean? I don't think there's any more to say. Y'all already heard our voice on this. I'll probably chop this up into a smaller conversation, but honestly, like, we are in no space to be advocating for any domestic discipline. It quickly leads to DV. A lot of this stuff is to do with power dynamics, power and control, dominance, trying to take authority over another human being. And that's something that we don't really tolerate around here. We're not agreeing with that kind of behavior, and men should not be celebrating this. To be fair, when I looked at the comments on this video, a lot of men were like, "What the frick is this?" Like, do you know what I mean? Because there's a level of madness, and this is where we're reaching it to. So, yeah, I just wanted to kind of review this, and I appreciate you joining us, individual, as well. So you definitely spat some real truths in there, and some people are going to be, everyone's going to watch this, going to be blessed. So we appreciate you, bro. Do you know what I'm saying?
Willing to do my part, man, because this stuff got to get out of here. Take this stuff. Got to get
Out of here. Out of here, indeed. Well, guys, it's been beautiful. It's been amazing. It's been good conversation as always. Guys, listen, make sure you like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button for notification of uploads, but let us know your comments down below as well. We appreciate you. Stay locked and stay loaded.
Little black, you know what time it is.